And welcome to another episode of the Tar Heels Insider Podcast with your host, Grant Chachere. And also, I am the lead beat writer for North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. North Carolina is victorious once again. They've won 73-61 over a pretty scrappy Navy team. And it wasn't the greatest performance by the Tar Heels, but you also have to remember this: this Navy team is supposed to be they're the favorites to win the Patriot League, so this will be a potential tournament team in the end. And also, you're still trying to figure out, playing without Seth. I mean, which they need to figure out pretty soon, right? But also, I think they kind of took it a little bit easier tonight mentally because they are preparing for two big games next week, especially the big one, which is Michigan State. So you knew they were going to be kind of sluggish coming out this stretch, right? But at the end of the day, you win the game. You prove the 5-0 first 5-0 start for the Tar Heels since the 2022-23 season. So it's been about 3 years since the Tar Heels have started that well, which is pretty surprising. I was kind of shocked by that too. And by the way, that 22-23 season, that was the year they missed the tournament. So that's what even made it even more shocking. But huge night for Caleb Wilson. But it didn't start off that way. In the first half, he didn't really play that great. Only scored 6 points. And he only had 5 rebounds. He did all right rebounding the ball, but points wise, he only had 6. So he was 6 for 5, 6 points, 5 rebounds, and he also was dealing with some foul trouble earlier in the game as well. He had to handle 2 or 3 fouls in that first half. So he's battling foul trouble all throughout the first half. But in the second half, he scores 15 points. He also had 7 rebounds as well, and he also had 4 steals and 3 blocks in the second half. That's all those that's pretty impressive, and that's a hell of a way to rebound after a tough first half. And that just shows you kind of like the drive and determination that Caleb Wilson has, even when he's playing bad, right? Or not. Well, I would say playing bad, but not playing, his greatest. And that comes with being a great player like that and kind of overcoming that adversity. And you've seen it all year long. But also, really, it also started with the dunks too. There was one dunk. I believe he had like 5 or 6 dunks tonight. It was a dunk fest in the second half, or at least the beginning of the second half. And one of them was a posterizing dunk where he took the ball up the court, was dribbling, did a Euro step, and all of a sudden he cocked it back and he slammed it home. And that kind of energized the team and energized the crowd. And North Carolina kind of, took it away from there. Although Navy went on a 15-0 run late in the second half. So North Carolina was killing them, but they slowed down this late in the second half, and that's why the score looks the way it did. But keep that in mind. It was like a 20-point game at one point. Like North Carolina's largest lead. They were leading by 24 points with under 5 minutes to go. So, they were killing them. They just let go, and they let Navy to make a little bit of a mini comeback, even though they were going to come back and win the game. But it was still a mini comeback where you're like, okay, we got to take care of business. But it wasn't a great second half. But Caleb Wilson's second half, or at least individually, helped seal the deal for the Tar Heels. Jaron Stevenson also had a great game, 4 for 6 from the field. He had 11 points, 8 rebounds. He also had an assist and a block. He's kind of he's the glue guy. He's not gonna make any stats to really pop out at you, but he does enough to help the team win the game. And that's what he did. 11 points and 8 rebounds. That's what you want from him. You want a guy. You want him to score efficiently. You want him to rebound the ball. Rebound the ball right effectively. You also want him to do the dirty work defensively. He will guard a point guard, but he'll also guard a center. He's very versatile, and he's also athletic enough to guard all 5 positions, which is something that's rare among guys who are 6'10", 6'11". So shout out to Jaron Stevenson. Luka Bogovac, not the greatest day shooting from the floor, 4 for 10, but he did make 3 of his 6 3-point attempts. So very good day for him from beyond the arc. 16 total points, was the second on the team. Derek Dixon made a couple threes. He's really become more comfortable shooting the ball, and I would really like to see him grow moving forward as you start to play some good teams like St. Bonaventure and, of course, Michigan State, who, by the way, defeated Kentucky 83-66. I mean, they beat the living snot out of them. So that's going to be a challenge for the Tar Heels, especially when you don't have Seth Trimble, right? If Seth Trimble was here playing right now, I feel a lot more comfortable with the Tar Heels playing a team like Michigan State. But, it's hard to lose a guy like Seth Trimble, who's not only your leader on the team, but also your slasher, right? You miss kind of the slashing ability to allow guys to get open. Like, he is your scrappy, undersized number 2. And that's what he was. And now you're kind of missing him. So you're kind of waiting for somebody to take that spot. I mean, Luka Bogovan's done a great job, but he doesn't, but if you had a guy like Seth Trimble, who's not only a great threat offensively, but also a great defender, which also is a very important aspect of North Carolina's team, that's going to be huge when you go up against a team like Michigan State, who's a very well-coached Michigan State team. Domino's has done this forever. His teams are all, even no matter how good or how, even if they're like average some years, because sometimes he has one of those average teams, right? They're still going to play scrappy. They're still going to play the basketball you expect from a Tom Izzo team. So, losing a guy like Seth Trimble who can kind of match that scrappiness, because I don't think this North Carolina team has that scrappiness, right? Yet, at least yet, right? Because it's still kind of too early in the season to tell, but you can kind of tell that, they don't really have a scrapper like Seth Trimble, and I think that's a very important part of this team that you're missing. And the reason why I say that is because if you look at the rebounding total, look at the rebounding margin, North Carolina had 45, but Navy had 38, right? And so when you go up against teams like a scrappy team like Navy, right, it doesn't really bode well. And I think, and you really looking back at that Kansas game, Seth Trimble was a guy, he was the scrappy. Of course, so was Caleb Wilson. I mean, Caleb Wilson's probably your main scrapper right now, but you needed a second one, and that guy was Seth Trimble, and he did that a lot against Kansas. I mean, Bill Self even said that he slowed down Darren Peterson during the game, even though Darren Peterson scored 22 points. Seth Trimble effectively made his 22-point total look like it was nothing. Like, it just didn't matter. That's how great Seth Trimble played on the defense side of the ball. And he also scored 70 points in that game as well. That will be very interesting to see moving forward. Of course, we'll have articles about that moving forward. Of course, you're not going to have a game this weekend. There's not going to be any media availabilities that I know of as of yet. So, you're going to see a lot of basketball content, just for kind of takeaways from the first 5 games of the season and whatnot. But yeah, just so the rebound total, you saw that, you don't really have the scrappiness needed. Navy was a scrappy team. You're going to play against scrappy teams like St. Bonaventure and Michigan State, especially Michigan State. So you're going to kind of need that. Kai and Evans didn't really have a great night. Kai and Evans had 6 assists, but he only had 3 points. He was 1 for 9 from the field. Really not a great night for Kai and Evans. And Kai and Evans, of course, you can say, well, he didn't score that much in the first few games. Nah. Yeah, he didn't score much, but he shot the ball efficiently, and he also passed the ball and played great defense. And tonight wasn't his night, and you really need him to step up moving forward. Because obviously he's played some good basketball, and yes, he may not be the basketball that everyone expected him to play, but he was still playing great basketball, moving the ball around. And I think that's something that kind of gets lost, that North Carolina had 15. Yeah, they only had 15 assists, but 12 of those were in the first half. So I think that was a huge difference in the second half, is that they weren't really moving the ball as well as they were in the first half, and that paid dividends. Of course, the front court played awesome. As I mentioned, Caleb Wilson played great. Jaron Stevenson played great. Henry Vassar, he didn't, 4 for 9. So, it wasn't the best night in the world, but still, he scored 10 points, had 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 assists. So, he did his role as well. May not be like the night he had the other night, but he still had a decent game. And I don't, and that's what you need just to get 7 rebounds, score 10 points. He shot 45% from the field. That's still pretty good. I know he's a big man. Maybe you want 50%, but 45% is still pretty good. And he was still effective tonight, especially on the defensive side of the glass. But yeah, 28 points in the paint for UNC, but Navy had 26. Like I said, that goes back to the scrappiness. You know, Navy also scored more second chance points than UNC did, 8-7. Fast breaks, UNC, even though UNC had 13 points, UNC outscored them 13-7. So not really much fast break points from North Carolina tonight, which shows you kind of the discipline that Navy had, slowing that down. But then also, here's another thing. Speaking of rebounds, yes, North Carolina did out-rebound Navy. I just saw this on the stat sheet. Yeah, like, North Carolina did out-rebound Navy 45-38, but if you look at the offensive rebound total, 13-9 in favor of Navy. So, once again, scrappiness. You didn't really show. They weren't as scrappy as Navy was. Yes, North Carolina won the game, but they didn't show the scrappiness needed to compete with a team like Navy. Navy's going to win Navy is a favorite to win the Patriot League. Yeah, that doesn't mean they're going to win the Patriot League, but they are a favorite to finish first in the Patriot League. This is supposed to be a very good Navy team. So, at least to, Patriot League standards. So, you wanted North Carolina to play better, but they got the dub. If Navy does, in fact, have a really good year this year, this win could help out, right? I know Kansas right now is losing to Duke as we recorded this. I'm not sure what the score is right now, but when I left the main media room, they were up by 10 points. I think with 15, 16 minutes left in the second half. So, you're going to need some wins down the stretch, maybe, especially against a win over St. Bonaventure and Michigan State. Georgetown has been playing really good. I think Georgetown's going to be undefeated by the time they play North Carolina right here in Chapel Hill. And, of course, you got the game against you also got, and before Georgetown, in between Georgetown and Kentucky, in between Michigan State and Georgetown, you have Kentucky. So we got 4 really important games for North Carolina. If you're able to win 3 out of those 4, that's a great stretch for North Carolina, especially the 4 teams you play. St. Bonaventure is going to be undefeated when North Carolina plays them in Fort Myers. And then on December 20th, you have Ohio State, who I think Ohio State will be a pretty good team record-wise when the Tar Heels play them in Atlanta. And then, of course, you got your last non-conference game against ECU on the 22nd, and then on the 29th is when they start ACC play, when Florida State comes to the Dean Dome to take on the Tar Heels in Chapel Hill. So this is the end of the cupcake portion of the schedule. Now you start to play some tougher non-conference opponents. Is North Carolina ready for that? I have no idea. But we really need to see how this North Carolina team plays now, especially that Seth Trimble won't be back until sometime late December, early January. Really right around the start of ACC play. So they need a strong stretch going into ACC play. You only want to lose maybe 1 or 2 games going to ACC play, and because that's when Seth Trimble is back. But anyway, without further ado, once again, North Carolina 73, Navy 61. The North Carolina improves to 5-0 for the season, first time since 2022, 2023. Caleb Wilson, 3rd straight double-double, 23 points, 12 rebounds, 4 steals, and 3 blocks. Great performance by him, but a little bit of a sluggish performance by the Tar Heels, but they got the dub regardless, and that's the most important thing. But anyway, tomorrow we're going to discuss more about North Carolina basketball, and also they had a team meeting as well. We'll get more to that, but I just want to do a recap of the game. We'll talk more about that meeting in tomorrow's podcast episode. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Tar Heels Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Grant Chachere, the lead beat writer for North Carolina Tar Heels on SI. Thank you guys so much for watching, and you guys have a great rest of your day or night, because right now it is 10 o'clock, 10:30 at night as I'm recording this. So, peace, y'all.